My beloved child, I do not come to you to sound the alarm of the end, but to rebuild a heart that knows how to live in this very moment. There are so many voices painting bleak scenery before your eyes. Sensational headlines. Predictions that make your heart shrink in fear. Amid all that noise, you easily assume that I too arrive like a red emergency signal, like a siren urging you to escape from this world as quickly as possible. But I come gently like the breath of early morning, like the light slipping through a narrow opening in the door, to remind you that each present moment can still be sanctified and reshaped by love. I do not call you to prepare for the end with dark scenarios, but with a sincere life that knows how to apologize, knows how to forgive, knows how to give, so that if the trumpet should suddenly sound, your heart will already be familiar with the rhythm of my kingdom. I do not want your soul hanging suspended between vague hypotheses, but anchored firmly in what you can live today. Each heartbeat, each step, each small choice, unseen by others, can become your quiet reply to my call. When you listen to these words, I do not pull you away from life, but invite you to step deeper into it with a heart that has been rearranged. It is in repetitive tasks, in responsibilities that appear ordinary, that I wait to teach you what true readiness means. The fear of tomorrow can make you want to shut every door, withdraw, and focus on protecting yourself from what has not yet happened. It forces your mind into a whirl of unanswerable questions and makes you forget the most important one: with whom and for what are you living today? I do not blame you for trembling, but I do not want that trembling to become your only teacher. I want fear to make you more honest, not more frantic. When you realize your fragility, that is when you can speak to me without hiding I need you. I cannot hold anything on my own. In that confession, you begin to understand that preparation is not decoding every sign, but opening your heart so I may touch the areas you still keep for yourself. I see the hidden corners of your thoughts, the old wounds still smoldering, the small compromises you dismiss, and I call you home not to condemn you, but to heal you. When you allow me to clean the inside, the noise outside will lose its power over you. When you learn to let fear place you on your knees instead of running away, you will taste a kind of peace that does not depend on what tomorrow might bring. The preparation I speak of does not take the form of long lists of items to stockpile, but the form of a heart humbled before truth. There are apologies you have postponed, conversations you have avoided, gazes you dare not meet because you fear facing your own faults. I invite you to begin there, with a simple acknowledgement, with a message sent, with a phone call opening a door that has long been closed. When you say, I was wrong to someone, you are also saying those words to yourself and to me. And that confession breaks the ego that tries to build walls around your heart. Forgiveness is also a part of preparation, not because the final day demands that you be perfect in every relationship, but because resentment weighs down your soul so heavily that it can no longer be light enough to step into freedom. I know there are wounds so deep you believe you cannot release them, but each time you choose not to nourish the story of anger in your mind, you are learning the rhythm of my kingdom. And when you share what you have, a little time, a simple meal, a wholehearted presence, you allow me to use your hands for what you thought only great people were called to do. Silent giving, without recognition or retelling, enlarges your heart so that it can contain more of the love I pour out. On the day the trumpet sounds, if you are in the middle of a small act of love, you will realize that readiness is not a sudden state, but the result of countless days of practice. You often think of the end as a red line drawn across life, cutting off every story, shutting every door, extinguishing all joy. But in my light, the end is not the roar of destruction. It is the moment when everything is set in its proper place. Falsehoods are stripped away, and what is true is preserved. I do not want you to live obsessed with that line, but to learn how to rearrange each small day as though every day were already a moment in which you walk through the checkpoint of love and righteousness. When you choose justice instead of conformity, when you choose a clean conscience instead of strengthening your image, you allow that end to unfold sooner within your own heart. Each time you abandon an idol, a habit clinging to comfort, you permit something to die so that rightful life may rise. I do not rejoice in pruning merely to leave emptiness. I prune to heal, so that what has decayed will not continue poisoning the rest of you. If you know that one day everything will be revealed under a light without concealment, you will see tremendous grace in letting that light shine today, even when it requires you to accept change. Like a tree trimmed of dry branches so that it may bloom more richly in the next season, your soul is destined to grow through every release of what no longer belongs to my kingdom. And within that process, the end gradually ceases to be something distant and frightening, and becomes the natural culmination of a journey accustomed to turning toward the light. So when I come and speak to you of the last things, I do not raise a warning banner in the sky of your mind. I place in your hands the concrete actions to live today with an undivided heart. I come to you not to sound the alarm of the end, but to rebuild a heart that knows how to live in this moment, to look back, to repair, to return, and to walk forward with a simplicity that has been refined. I want you awakened, but not exhausted, alert, but not suspicious of everything until your heart turns to stone. I call you out of dark scenarios because they make you forget that I am still the source of every life, and that my kingdom is still growing through the unnoticed choices of love. Let every day of yours become a gentle yet decisive answer to this call, so that if the unexpected hour arrives, you will not be startled like a stranger, but recognize the trumpet as the familiar voice calling you home. Train your soul to the heartbeat of my kingdom through small steps, sincere words, and nameless kindnesses, for these are the only things that do not fade when all else changes. And when you feel an unnamed restlessness about the future, remember that I do not push you into darkness to guess on your own. I invite you to sit with me, to learn again each rhythm of life that was created, to harmonize with the melody of love. Let today itself become the beginning of a new kind of preparation, not the building of fortresses of fear, but the cultivation of trust, of mercy, of a life that dares to be transparent before me. Then, whatever comes, you will no longer be defined by what the end takes away, but by what love has already formed within you. If the trumpet sounds unexpectedly, it will not be because you knew the signs, but because your heart has already grown familiar with dwelling in me. You may gather every rumor, compare every stream of information, memorize every moment in time that people mention, but if your inner being remains chaotic, that knowledge will only exhaust you. I do not rebuke your curiosity, but I know that a soul is not kept steady by reasoning, but by the place it learns to reside in each day. Like a person who lives in a noisy city but whose heart has grown accustomed to the rhythm of a quiet side street, you too are invited to let your heart become familiar with the rhythm of the kingdom in the midst of the clamor of the age. When your heart beats to the rhythm of fear, every piece of news becomes a reason to panic. When your heart beats to the rhythm of trust, those very same things become reminders to live awake. The passing through that troubles you is not about surviving a crisis with tricks, but walking through every change with a soul that knows who it belongs to. I want you to understand that what sustains you is not a storehouse of data in your mind, but a hidden attachment, where your heart has learned to turn back to me the way it turns to breath. Do not underestimate the simple moments when you return to me in a small room, along a familiar road, amid noisy cafes. There your heartbeat is being trained not to chase every external signal. And when many people count the days as if they are waiting for a storm, I invite you to learn a simple thing. Let your heart become a home, not a temporary shelter. For my presence, the heartbeat of your body is not healthy by accident. It is shaped by your breathing, by the way you live, by what you take in and how you rest. So too, the rhythm of the kingdom within you, it does not appear in a sudden emotional flash, but through the small choices you think do not matter. When you choose to speak truth, even though that truth costs you a little advantage, your heart is learning the rhythm of sincerity. When you choose silence so as not to answer in bitterness, even when you have hundreds of reasons to justify your anger, your heart is learning the rhythm of mercy. When you quietly share what you have without anyone noticing, your heart is learning the rhythm of unconditional giving. Those rhythms, repeated over the years, grow into a spiritual memory within you, so that when anything comes, your first reaction is not to recoil, but to turn toward me. I do not seek from you immediate perfection. I seek a heart willing to be trained consistently, like someone who walks every day, not to break records, but so their legs do not grow weak. The more faithful you are to the small rhythms, the less you become obsessed with great upheavals, because you have tasted that peace does not depend on what happens, but on who you are in. Many people think that being awake means keeping their eyes strained on every strange sign. But I spoke very simply: watch and pray. Being awake is not anxious vigilance, but holding your mind and heart in an open posture before me. When you begin your day with a simple offering, your heart is corrected away from heavy plans waiting to seize control. When you pause at midday for a few minutes, breathe deeply, and remind yourself that I am present even in the work you are doing. An internal misalignment is adjusted without your knowing. When night comes, instead of letting your thoughts drift into dark scenarios, you choose to recount in your heart the moments I preserved you. And there you are, training your heart to remember what is good rather than what is frightening. Prayer is not a key to unlock an emergency door on the final day, but a gentle rhythm that keeps your soul from being swept away by the daily current. Being awake is not standing guard by the window with frantic eyes, but walking with intention, noticing which direction your heart leans today. When you find yourself caught in streams of information, arguments, or nameless anxieties, treat them as signals to return, to slow your breathing in me. Gradually you will realize that true vigilance does not drain you, but makes you lighter, because the burden of controlling the future no longer rests on your shoulders. Even so, there will be days when your heart races wildly when an unexpected event arrives. A bad report knocks on the door, or an inexplicable restlessness rises within you. I do not demand that you stand firm instantly as if you had no emotions. I know every trembling beat. What I invite you to do in those moments is not to pretend to be calm, but to bring the chaos of your heart to my presence, just as it is. When you dare to speak your fear, when you dare to weep before me, your heart no longer has to exhaust itself trying to calm down, because I am the one holding it. The moments when your heart falters are opportunities for you to see how deeply you need me, and to experience that the rhythm of the kingdom is not shattered by a single quake. I patiently reset your rhythm through a word of comfort from someone else, through a simple verse of scripture, through a recollection of the times I rescued you before. You do not fail spiritually simply because you were afraid. The danger is not that your heart speeds up, but when you decide to shut your heart and refuse my touch. If you are willing to open yourself, every chaos will become a lesson in relearning the rhythm of trust. Over time, you will understand that the deepest work I am doing is not providing you with detailed maps of the future, but turning your heart into a place no longer unfamiliar to me, like someone who lives long in a house and knows who has arrived simply by hearing footsteps. You will learn to recognize my presence in the smallest movements of the day. When an enticing opportunity appears and something within you hesitates, It may be the rhythm of the kingdom, gently knocking to remind you to look again. When a weak person crosses your path and a soft impulse within urges you to stop. It is the rhythm of the kingdom inviting you into mercy. When you are weary yet still feel a gentle pull calling you back to prayer. It is not obligation. It is the rhythm of the kingdom drawing you toward its familiar beat. If the trumpet comes unexpectedly, you will not make it through because you guessed the moment correctly, but because by then you are already standing within the rhythm I have been training you to live in. A heart accustomed to abiding in me does not panic searching for something to cling to, because it realizes it has never stepped outside my arms. And before everything you do not yet know, let this become your rest. The rhythm of the kingdom is never interrupted, and I never stop inviting your heart to join it. Little by little, a true life is not a moral disguise. It is the quiet response of the soul to me. You often imagine that living truthfully means wearing a flawless cloak of virtue, standing before others as someone without scratches, without mistakes, without error. But authenticity is not a polished mask. It is inward harmony, where what you think, what you speak, and what you do no longer battle each other. Like a gardener who steps into the morning, who does not shout at the bushes or yank the branches to force growth, but only kneels to inspect the soil, gently remove the weeds, water just enough, and let the sunlight do its part. You too are invited to live in this way. I do not wait for you to strain yourself to become righteous. I place before you small actions you can take with a simple heart. When you choose silence in the face of mockery instead of retaliating, it is a quiet drop of water nourishing your soul. When you add a thank you and say, "I'm sorry" before leaving, I see your hand gently removing the weeds of pride from the roots. Authenticity does not arrive through a grand ceremony. It arrives through small acts no one praises, acts that are enough for me to know that you still want to live in me. There are days when you feel discouraged, like a small shrub that has just been eaten by insects overnight. You think that all your efforts have been wasted, that you should have been stronger, more mature, better. But a wise gardener does not abandon a shrub just because of a single wound. They observe the leaves, trim away the damaged parts, gently apply treatment, and allow time to restore it. I am the same. I do not demand that you rise in perfect condition immediately. I only ask you to return to this small rhythm of care. A short prayer, a minute of stopping to take a deep breath, a decision not to highlight bitterness in your mind. Each of these is a way you return to me. A truthful life is not hung high like a trophy. It is always within reach. Like the gardener who gently lifts each leaf every day to check whether the roots are still strong, whether the soil is still moist. I see every time you choose not to abandon yourself. I hear the response of your soul every time you allow yourself to be healed instead of pretending to be strong. There are moments when you imagine you must do something grand to please me, that you must help many people, create change, prove your worth. Yet a soul shaped by my hands is not formed through sudden breakthroughs, but through the persistence of daily life. Just as a gardener cannot force a plant to bloom overnight, you cannot step into authenticity through a single impulsive emotion. A glass of water placed before someone who is weary, a message of concern sent at the right time, a small patience offered to someone struggling. These things are like handfuls of fertilizer, spread little by little, unnoticed, yet nourishing the deep roots. I do not consider those things small. I see them as living evidence that your soul remains in me. A truthful life is not a performance before the crowd. It is the quiet footsteps on soft ground where only I am the witness. And it is precisely those quiet things that have the power to break false habits and soften the sharp edges within you. Do not fear the days when your mind sways like a field after a storm. Do not force yourself back into a serene state merely to preserve a spiritual appearance. The gardener does not scold the shrub when heavy rain washes away some of the soil. They simply return, Add fresh layers of earth. Support the stem. And place a few stones to retain moisture. You can do the same with yourself. When emotions surge, when your thoughts are tangled in negativity, when you feel lost, do not punish yourself for weakness. Come back to me and say, I need you to help me regain stability. I do not see that prayer as a sign of failure. I see it as the response of a soul that longs to live in the light. When you acknowledge the truth about yourself, you begin to live authentically, not because you are already perfect, but because you have stopped pretending. And each time you do this, I place my hand again upon your soil, clearing away stones and opening pathways for your roots to grow deeper. Time is the ally of authenticity. The gardener does not look at the shrub each day solely to calculate when it will bloom. They know that if the soil is tended, if the roots can breathe, if the leaves are kept clean, the flowers will arrive when their moment comes. Do you want to know whether you are living authentically? Look at your smallest reactions. When someone misunderstands you, do you insist on winning the argument, or do you speak just enough to preserve peace? When you crave praise, do you boast about what you have done, or do you let your actions speak? When you are tired, do you run to the things that harden your heart, or do you choose to lie down in me to be renewed? These are subtle signs. The streams of sap moving through the trunk that only the gardener can see. I do not wait until the final day to evaluate your life. I am watching every gentle act of courage you take, even now. And a truthful life, though without fireworks, is the way your soul answers me. Each day, I want to live according to your rhythm, not according to the image the world expects of me. I know there are times when you wish you could walk away from everything, those who hurt you, broken dreams, whispers of criticism, news that unsettles your heart. This world sometimes feels like a turbulent sea crashing waves against the fragile shore within you, making you think that withdrawing into a safe corner will make all the pain disappear. But I did not call you to be light so that you would hide it in a closed room. I teach you to walk through the world, not as someone escaping, but as one who carries my living stream. You do not need to become a wall of defense, nor a mirror reflecting every noise. You only need to become a small vessel, open enough for me to pour through, like a traveler carrying fire at night, not to burn the forest, nor to hide in a cave, but to illuminate each step on the path you are called to live in this world with that quiet endurance. The world may storm, but your soul does not need to become cracked and barren from fear. What I desire is a heart that has returned to me so many times that it is no longer easily bent by every passing wind. Some people believe holiness means withdrawing from complexity, like a farmer who sees weeds and decides to abandon the field. But a wise farmer does not run from the weeds. They take up the hoe. They patiently kneel at each root. They keep their soil fertile so the seeds can anchor. When you do good in your workplace, even if it is only a small kindness to someone weak, you are not compromising with the world. You are sowing a seed that belongs to me. When you smile at someone whose sadness is unseen, when you choose to listen instead of trying to win, when you help another without seeking recognition, you are protecting your heart from becoming like the cold reflexes society teaches. Do not search for an empty place to prove that you belong to me. Let the crowded places become the ground where you learn to carry me. Holiness does not blossom in a barren desert. It grows along paths full of footprints, where you must continually choose what is quiet yet never false. I do not want you to live by avoiding challenges, because the soul only grows when it walks through them with me. Just as a sailor knows that the open sea, not still lakes, gives them skill, you will gradually understand that maturity does not come from avoiding evil, but from refusing to let evil enter you. There will be moments when you are tempted convenience instead of integrity, an escape instead of admission, retaliation instead of kind silence. The world always offers shortcuts, quick paths, strategies labeled wise for preserving reputation, gaining profit, or protecting yourself. But I do not measure you by what you seize. I measure you by what you preserve, the purity of conscience, compassion that does not close, and the ability to refuse trading your soul for comfort. When you choose what is right in ordinary spaces where no one sees, you are walking in the world without letting it shape you, because the one shaping you is me. There will be days when you feel disheartened seeing deceivers prosper and the ruthless praised. You will wonder why I do not sweep away these injustices so your soul can rest. But I do not heal the world by attacking it from the outside. I heal it by planting souls that know how to love from within it. Just as a seed must be placed in stony soil to break open and seek depth, you too are placed among complex communities, abrasive environments, and uncomfortable collisions to learn how to grow deeper roots. Each time you practice patience, each time you restrain yourself, each time you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, your roots press deeper into me. When you fall, I do not leave you in the mud. I stand there waiting, so that you will learn how to rise in me without becoming like the mud. Walking through the world does not mean dissolving into it, but letting your soul be like a river stone. Water may flow over it, but it never carries away its nature. My child, I teach you to walk through the world without carrying its whispers inside your heart. The refusal to be defined does not come from loud confrontation, but from a life rearranged by me. You do not need complex philosophies, nor dazzling shields. You only need a heart that has grown familiar with returning. Each time you pause to listen to me amid the spinning wheels of life, you are breaking the invisible molds the world has imposed on you. When you choose to slow down to hear the plea of a small person, when you lift up the weak instead of seeing them as burdens, when you notice the beauty in others instead of comparing, you are not merely living well, you are living according to my design. And what I want you to understand is this: you do not have to run away from the world to remain pure. You only need to refuse to let it define who you are. I am the place you come to, the breath you carry, the spring of water in the vessel you pour for the thirsty. When you walk through the world with that lifeline, nothing can drown you, no matter how loud it becomes. Forgiveness is not you dropping the sword in surrender, nor signing a dishonest treaty so the one who wronged you can walk away unchallenged. Forgiveness is when you stop letting the pain define you. The world teaches you that strength lies in retaliation, in winning, in keeping the scar as a reminder that no one is allowed to touch you again. But in me, strength lies in the courage to release the thorns that wrap around your own heart. Like someone who has gone far before realizing they have been holding nothing but a handful of ashes, you too will reach the moment when you see that anger does not keep you safe. It only closes your soul, depriving it of oxygen and light. Forgiveness is the act of opening a small window for me to enter, allowing love to touch the place you have protected for too long. No one can force you to forgive, not even me. But when you do, you step out of the walls of the world and into the language of the kingdom, a language that needs no argument to prove itself right. Only a heart still capable of softness. Wounded souls often choose silence as armor, but that silence is sometimes not peace, but paralysis. I do not ask you to suppress your pain. I ask you to place it in my hands. Forgiveness does not deny what happened, does not erase memory, and does not make your tears meaningless. It only changes the authority of the pain from ruling over you. It becomes something I can touch, heal, and reshape. As a gardener who sees a branch eaten by insects does not blame the tree, but gently cuts off the decayed part so the healthy portion can continue to live, you too must allow me to trim away the roots that are drawing poison into your mind. There are apologies you will never receive, and there are injustices you will never witness completely resolved. But forgiveness frees the soul from waiting for others to become better before you are allowed to be at peace. When you forgive, you are not saying that what they did was right. You are saying that your soul deserves healing more than it deserves to be chained beside the harm they caused. Forgiveness does not unfold in an instant. It is like the gardener who patiently waters the tree after a harsh drought, bucket by bucket, day by day, without rushing. On the first day, the soil is still dry. The roots cannot yet absorb the moisture. On the second day, the surface softens. On the third day, life begins to move again within the sap. Forgiveness is the same. Some days you may only be able to whisper, "I do not want to hate anymore." Some days your heart might crack open because old memories return. A week later, you might suddenly pray for the one who hurt you and be surprised that the prayer no longer feels forced. Do not fear if the journey is long. It is precisely that gentle repetition that becomes the soul's response to me. I do not demand that you forget. I only want you to stop letting the past become the hook that drags you back into darkness, like a young plant that needs shade for a season before it blooms. You also need time to learn forgiveness without believing you have lost. Forgiveness has a tone the world cannot hear. It is not loud, not ostentatious, but it changes the climate within you. Think back to the moments when you held on to resentment. You spoke less, laughed less, and every conversation carried a hidden layer of thorns. Such thoughts are like thick fog, concealing the light I send to you each day. When you forgive, it is not the other person who is freed first, it is you who is unbound. You begin to speak simple sentences you once could not utter. I am fine. I no longer hold that. I want to live on. That language is not the slogan of optimism. It is how your soul relearns my voice. It is the voice of those who know that ultimate justice is not in their hands, and thus they can walk gently through life without tensing themselves like a lonely gatekeeper. Forgiveness does not make you weak. It is clinging to resentment that exhausts you. You will ask, but do they deserve it? My answer is this: you do not forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because your heart was not made to store poison. A water vessel does not hold a puddle of mud simply because someone cast mud into it. It is washed so that it may continue to carry water, to continue serving those who thirst. Forgiveness does not make you naive. It makes you brave, brave enough to not be shaped by what others have done to you. You may protect yourself, set boundaries, and choose healthy places to dwell. But in all those decisions, you do not need to abandon the language of heaven. That language is not blind sweetness. It is freedom, the ability to walk without dragging chains behind you. And when you live in that language, I not only heal your old wounds, I make you a refuge for other souls, those who will one day discover in you the imprint of a love that has learned to overcome. There are moments when you think that to apologize is to lose your worth, that when you say, "I was wrong," you are placing the key of your honor into someone else's hand. But apology is not the raised hand of surrender. It is the step back to where I have been waiting for you all along, like the first sunlight slipping through a crack in the door at dawn. Not loud, not announced, simply appearing and revealing the dust within a silent room. Apology exposes the truth you have tried to hide from yourself. It does not make you smaller. It merely reveals the part of the heart that needs to be opened. When you allow that light to pass through, you do not collapse. You begin to see, and seeing is always the beginning of healing. I do not stand behind the door holding a ledger of all your faults. I stand there with gentle breath, waiting for you to open even a tiny gap through which I may enter. Apology is not the act of seeking pity, nor a ticket that guarantees you immediate forgiveness. It is simply the acknowledgement that you no longer wish to live in darkness for another day. Like a person who stops when they realize they have wandered off on an unfamiliar road. Apology is the gesture of turning away from error to seek the familiar path again. You do not need to understand why you got lost. Do not need to list every cause. Do not need to dissect every failure. You only need to turn back. You do not have to tear up the old map. You only have to look at each step and say, I walked astray. From that moment on, I will walk with you, not as a watchman, but as a guide. I do not condemn you for going in the wrong direction. I only ache if you choose to live forever in it and build your home in the desert. Sometimes an apology is not meant for others, but for yourself. You apologize for forcing your heart to strain in solitude, for choosing silence when you should have spoken, for holding on to resentment like an old possession. You apologize for rushing into the decisions of the world and being too slow in returning to me, like the final leaf of winter falling to make space for new green buds. These apologies are not a sign of decay, but a release, so that new life may appear. I do not see you through the mistakes of the past. I see you through every moment you are courageous enough to turn back. I do not score your life by the times you choose correctly. I remember every small step that returns to me. The fear of apologizing is not a flaw. It is simply the sign that you are standing at a threshold where light begins to filter in. And when you stand before the one you have wounded, the apology does not need to be grand. It does not need music. It does not need justifications. A simple phrase, I was wrong, is enough to open the space where I may step between two souls who once seemed distant. You do not need to lower your head. You only need to lower your heart. Your eyes may still tremble with fear. Your hands may still shake. But the very moment you turn back breaks the silent current of destruction. The other person may remain silent, may not forgive you, may not understand, and yet your action still holds value, because it is not only meant to heal them, but also to free you from the windowless room you have imprisoned yourself in, like a ray of light slipping through a crack in the door even before the one inside is ready. Your apology opens a passage for me to begin my work, the work you cannot do in their place. My child, do not think an apology has worth only when it is accepted. Some apologies are like seeds that fall into a dry field. It seems as if no one notices them. But when the rains arrive, they sprout. Apology is not the end of dignity. It is the beginning of freedom. You do not apologize to please the world, but to shake off the burden that has weighed on your shoulders for too long. You do not apologize to prove you have lost, but to prove that you have chosen light over darkness. I see every moment you turn back, every time you open the door, even slightly, every time you let the light slip in. And I invite you to remember this apology does not pull you down. It lifts you up from the ground where hatred has tried to keep you lying still. When you return, I am always there, without judgment, without calculation, only reaching out, my hand, like the light that never asks why the door was closed, only needs to know that a narrow opening has been made. There are days when you seek me and encounter only silence, like the surface of a still lake without a ripple. You wait for a clear answer, a sign, a powerful intervention so that you may know you are walking in the right direction. Yet instead, you meet an emptiness, a space devoid of sound that makes you think, I have abandoned you. But silence is not my absence. It is where I am laying the foundation stones within your soul. Like a builder who cannot afford impatience and erects the walls before the foundation has cured, only for the entire structure to collapse at the first rain. I do not rush to speak when your heart is not ready to contain my words. I need time to dig through old soil, to uproot bitter roots, to open pathways for things you have never understood. These days of silence are not dead ends. They are corridors leading into new spiritual chambers that I long to bring you into. You think you are waiting, but in truth, it is I who am waiting for you to reach a depth you have never stepped into before. Within silence, the voices you once depended on lose their power. Praise no longer proves you are right. Criticism no longer pushes you to fall, and the clamor of the world no longer divides your heart. What you hear in the silence is not a clear answer, but the shedding of old expectations. You begin to notice what you once ignored, the subtle sting of a dishonest thought, the quiet tightening of your soul when you respond without sincerity, the vague unease when you try to please others at the cost of losing yourself. I place these sensations in you not to make you weak, but so that you may realize I am teaching you to listen with a different ear, the one that belongs to the soul. When you cease speaking, you begin to perceive that which speaks to you from within, and silence, once meaningless, begins to form the language I use to correct the rhythm of your life. As a farmer cannot sow seeds on land that has just been overturned, I do not speak much when your heart is still unsettled. Silence is the time for the soil to rest, for the roots to find a path downward. I know your impatience. I know your longing for immediate answers, like a seed that wishes to become a tree overnight. But I do not build the soul through emotional explosions. I build it through layers of sediment formed by steadiness. When you feel abandoned, in truth I am pressing deep into your marrow the truths you have heard, the reminders of forgiveness, of apology, of walking through the world without being shaped by it. These are not pinned to your mind like a note of instruction. They must be placed within your heart as a living pulse. That can only happen in silence. Only when every other noise withdraws does the soul begin to recognize the small but enduring current within it. There are days when silence feels like night. You think you are sinking into a darkness without light. But in truth, it is the time when the young sprout hides itself from the cold wind. A seed does not germinate under the gaze of the world. It germinates in the hidden soil where no one sees. I use silence so that you may learn to trust me without evidence. Learn to love me without applause. Learn to depend on me without external encouragement. You do not need to witness miracles to know I am working. You only need to sense the gentle movement within a softening of your heart, a decision not to return bitterness, a quiet confession I still need you. These are the first tender shoots breaking through the earth, showing that silence has not been in vain. And when you think silence is delay, remember that I never leave you alone in the darkness to punish you. I am silent like a teacher standing beside the student who is practicing, knowing that if the teacher corrects too often, the student will never learn to stand firmly on their own. I do not want you to become one who merely hears my words. I want you to become one who lives them. Silence is the space where you are gently tested, where you ask yourself, are you still walking in the light, or are you turning back into the shadows? And if you realize you are going astray, you will know how to return without my needing to shout. Through silence, I teach you a lesson that speech cannot teach, that my presence does not depend on sound, but on trust. Silence is not a void. Silence is a foundation. And once that foundation is firm, every word I speak afterward will not only be heard by you, but lived by you. There are days when sudden rain arrives without warning, the pouring drops beating against the roof, the windows, and your mind, as if to test whether your soul has enough anchors not to shatter. People often rush to find shelter, fleeing from a sky that coils above them, as though the darkness of the clouds is the darkness within themselves. But I see something different, like a steady heartbeat within the chest even as the rain strikes with no pattern. Peace does not require a clear sky to exist. Peace is a decision. The small but powerful, yes, you whisper to me amid the noise of the world, not because you know how to control the storm, but because you know how to keep the depth of your heart where I dwell, and you will discover a gentle truth. Peace is never the natural reaction of an untrained soul. Yet it is always the fruit of the soul that is learning to trust. The world tells you that you must react, that you must argue, raise your voice to prove you are right, and show strength so that you will not be swallowed whole. I do not ask you to sink into passivity or remain silent out of fear. I simply invite you to step into a different rhythm, a rhythm that was placed within you from the very beginning. Imagine your heart beating steadily while the rain falls without ceasing, beating no faster when lightning flashes, no more chaotically when thunder explodes, because it knows its task is not to respond to the sky, but to preserve life within the body. Your soul is the same. Not every tremor demands an answer. Not every conflict requires you to intervene. Not every movement of the age has the right to steal the peace I have placed in you. Peace is not a weapon against the world, but the most natural refuge of a mature soul, the place where you learn to breathe steadily, regardless of the noise. There are moments, my child, when your peace is exactly what astonishes others, not the kind of peace that puts you above them, looking down from a distance, but the peace that allows you to sit beside someone who trembles without letting their fear carry you away. Peace makes you a porch roof in the rain, a place where the weary can shelter, even for a brief moment. You do not need to preach, to analyze, or to prove that you understand anything at all. Your calmness alone is enough to offer someone another breath, another heartbeat. That is the quiet testimony I value more than grand promises that your soul has learned to hear me, even when the sky is gray. When you dare to stand still without hardening your heart, when you know how to listen without letting anxiety devour you, when you open the door without demanding conditions, you are whispering a yes into my ear without a single sound. Peace does not turn you into someone indifferent to pain, nor into someone who closes their eyes to truth. Peace is the way you affirm that I am the center, not the circumstances, like a steady heartbeat walking through the long rains of life. Peace allows you to move through chaos without losing yourself. You may hear judgment, accusation, and urgent calls to respond at once, but you choose the rhythm I taught you, slower, deeper, softer. It is not escape from reality, but a refusal to let reality determine the value of your soul. When you choose peace, you are not abandoning the world, you are declaring that the world is not your master. Through that steadiness, you bring my presence into the places people assume are destined only for conflict. Often, peace allows you to see what chaos always hides: an apology left unsaid, a heart searching for a way out, a pair of eyes pleading to be understood. I do not measure your soul by the moments when you speak loudly, but by the moments when you choose silence, because that silence protects love. I do not remember the confrontations you win, but the times you choose not to corner someone even when you could. Peace is the decision not to tear apart a fragile opportunity just because you want to be right immediately. Peace is when you say, I trust you, even when the situation distorts itself before your eyes. And when you choose peace, I draw closer, because I have heard the yes that no one else hears. You think peace is avoidance, but in truth it is the reply of a soul that believes, I am still at work in places you cannot yet see. Just as the heartbeat does not stop even when rain falls for hours, peace helps you stand firm before the complex motions of life without dissolving into them. That peace is an inner architecture built by small choices. When no one is looking, when only you and I know that you chose the gentler way to keep love intact, there are moments when you think, I am far away, as if the sun were hidden behind thick clouds, and you must do something grand, impressive, to draw me back. But my child, I do not move away from you as your own perception leads you to believe. Just as the morning light shifts its angle upon the wall without anyone hearing its footsteps, that light does not come nearer because you beg, nor does it withdraw because you are unworthy. It simply waits for your heart to turn ever so slightly toward it. Like a leaf tilting the flat of itself to catch a drop of dew, you do not need to run toward me on a dramatic journey. You simply need to soften your heart by 1 degree. That turning makes no sound, creates no storm of emotion, and draws no attention from the world. But in the spiritual realm, It is movement enough for me to see that you desire to belong to me, like a dim room when its window is closed by a centimeter. All it takes is for you to open it just a little more, and the light will rush in. I do not ask you to break walls, to remove the roof, or to run in the burning sun to prove your longing. I only want you to turn a little instead of speaking bitterness. You hold silence for a moment, instead of feeding resentment. You let it dissolve in a long breath, instead of condemning yourself for what has passed. You utter a small phrase, "Help me." These movements are as subtle as the shifting angle of sunlight across the floor, but they open a window. I have been standing outside for a very long time. You often think I enter only after you have changed completely. But the truth is, I step in the moment your heart becomes thin enough for a ray of light to pass through. There are days when you are so tired that you have no strength left to change your whole life. You want to rise, but your legs are heavy as stone. You want to speak something kind, but your throat is stiff like a rusty blade. I do not ask you to become an ancient tree overnight. I only invite you to be a sprout that knows how to turn toward the light, just as the sun never needs you to raise it. You never have to lift the weight of your soul on your own. You simply need to turn your heart by 1 degree, not to prove anything to me, but to offer yourself a path. That 1 degree might be choosing not to strike back, sending a message of reconciliation, acknowledging a small fault, releasing an unnecessary demand, or sitting in stillness for 5 minutes before you act. These seemingly ordinary things are how you open the window of the soul. I do not measure your return by the distance you have run, but by the direction you turn. A soul that has wandered 30 years to the right needs only to turn its heart slightly to begin walking correctly. The road home is never as far as you think. Because I do not stand at the finish line, I stand at the point where you turn around. I do not demand an inner revolution full of thunder. I choose the gentle movements of trust, like sunlight shifting a few degrees across the earth. You will see everything begin to change, not because those things have changed, but because the light now touches them differently. When you turn your heart toward me, the world will not transform instantly, but the light will begin to shape how you see it. What was once heavy will reveal a way through. What once was dark will show its contours. What once exhausted your soul will soften, like the late hours of the day when the sun has already leaned west. You ask me what you must do to hear me more clearly. I answer not by speaking louder, but by inviting you to become a little quieter. You ask me where you must go to find peace. I do not lead you to another place. I simply touch your shoulder and gesture gently toward a new direction. You ask me when the right moment is to change your life. I do not point to the future or the past. I simply incline my gaze toward the present moment. All I long for is that you understand I do not hide myself inside what is dramatic, in grand events, or in thunderous confirmations. I am often found in the smallest changes, the moment you speak a kind word, even when no one deserves it. The moment you forgive, even when the other person never asked. The moment you place your hope on what I can do instead of what you have done wrong. That single degree is the measure I see, the doorway through which I enter. There are houses built with thick walls, my child, not to keep out rain or sun, but to conceal wounds. You have lived in such a house, a place where words that could hurt others are kept hidden like a secret. A place where the injuries you received lie still in the shadows, like stones no one bothers to pick up. You thought silence would protect you from shame, that ignoring the pain would allow things to heal on their own, that time would bury the fractures without ever needing to touch them. But cracks do not disappear. They expand quietly from within. And when you light a small lamp in your heart, the light does not pass through the stone, it passes through the fracture. An apology works the same way. It does not create a wound. It exposes the wound so that light can touch it. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, You do not need to replace the entire door. Only open a crack wide enough for the light to enter. Some mistakes are not loud, only a careless remark that leaves someone silent. A moment of avoidance born from pride, or a prolonged silence like a heavy curtain. You believe that to apologize you must shrink yourself into humiliation, that you must lower your worth. But apology does not place you beneath anyone. It returns you to your rightful place before me. Like a small crack in a wall when the morning sun strikes it, not destroying the structure, but allowing the room to receive warmth for the first time. Apology does not deny what you have built. It simply offers me a narrow opening through which I may breathe with you. People often think strength lies in standing firm, but in my kingdom, strength is revealed when you are humble enough to say, "I was wrong." A sentence as light as dust, yet enough to break the endless loop that has bound you for so long. There are souls hardened by the fear of apologizing. You fear others will take advantage of you. Fear being looked down on. Fear opening your heart only to be rejected. But I do not ask you to apologize to be humiliated. I ask you to apologize to free your soul from the walls that imprisoned it. You do not apologize because the other person deserves it. You apologize because your heart needs light. Look at the wall, a small crack, at first unnoticed, but when the sunlight leans in, it becomes a pathway of gold. Light does not demand you demolish the wall, it only asks for a gap. I am the same. I do not require you to be perfect before opening the door. I only wait for you to be courageous enough to turn the handle. Apology is the first small movement, and I will be the one who walks through the remaining threshold. Relationships collapse, not because of great hatred, but because small fractures are never brought into the light. A timely apology can prevent an entire wall from falling. I see how tightly you cling to your justifications, not because you are cruel, but because you fear acknowledging your vulnerability. Yet apology does not say you are weak, it says you are strong enough not to hide. When you admit the truth, the dust clinging to the interior of the wall falls like gentle rain, and light begins searching for a way to slip in. That radiance is not loud, not instantly brilliant, but it begins to reflect the corners you once believed were dead. Apology does not merely restore conversation with another, it restores conversation with me where I have stood, patiently, outside the door you built. My child, you do not need to wait for the perfect moment or favorable emotions to apologize. Perfection slows you down, humility sets you in motion. Remember that a wall never knows it has a crack until the light begins to shine through it. You do not need to explain everything. You do not need elegant words. You do not need a complex speech. Simply one honest sentence. Enough for me to enter. I am sorry. When you speak those words, you do not merely repair a relationship. You speak to me, I still belong to you. And my child, I always respond to that. I do not record your faults to use them as evidence against you. I record your return as the sound of a lock opening. Apology is how you place your hand on the door I have long been knocking upon. And when you open it, the light will not only touch the wall, it will remain in the house. There are souls who believe peace arrives only when all disruptions have settled, when work is stable, when others have changed, when wounds are fully healed, when the future is clear. They imagine peace as a gift I hand them after they endure the storm, like a trophy for those who waited patiently. But my child, peace is not the end of the journey. Peace is the ground you walk upon with every step, like a footpath through the forest that does not promise sunlight at its end. Yet you walk because the earth beneath your feet keeps you from falling. My peace does not wait for everything to become bright. It is what you carry inside, the shadows you do not yet understand. I do not let you search for peace after the battle. I place peace within you before the first gust arrives, so you never have to fight with fear. There are mornings when you wake, your forehead still steeped in the remnants of the night anxiety, procrastination, confusion over someone's words. You open your eyes and your mind wants to surge like a storming sea. But if you pause for a moment, breathe the way someone standing in early mist listens to birdsong, untouched by the rush of the world, you will see that peace does not require you to conquer anything. It only asks that you place what is right in its rightful place. Peace is not seeing everything and fearing nothing. Peace is choosing to put your hand in mine when you see nothing at all. You do not need to prove you are stronger than chaos. You only need to make room for me in every breath, like a room that cannot expel its own dust, but need only open a window for the wind to do the rest. The world teaches you to harden yourself to survive, to resist so you are not devoured, to fight so you are not left behind. But my peace moves in the opposite direction. It does not lift you above others to look down upon them, but returns you to the center where you cannot be swept away. In the noise, peace is the choice not to react instinctively, in suspicion. Peace is the ability to see people as I see them, in conflict. Peace is the small warmth inside you, whispering, I am here. This does not make you weaker. It makes you someone with a center. Not because you enjoy avoiding confrontation, but because you choose to walk in my rhythm instead of the rhythm of fear. Sometimes you think I am not acting, because you do not see immediate results. But peace always comes before the miracle. Do not mistake silent doors for abandonment. It may be that I am turning down the noise so you can hear how your heart has been racing too fast after the world. I do not stop every storm each time you are afraid. I teach you to become a boat that knows how to keep its balance upon the waves. When you find that you no longer have to retaliate, no longer have to prove yourself, no longer need to win, that is not because you have become weaker. It is because peace has been shaping you from within, and the storm has lost its right to choose the shape of your soul. Peace does not arrive like a grand guest walking into a festival. Peace comes like the dawn, gentle, slow, without a sound, yet swallowing the night. You do not need to call it by name for it to exist. As long as you choose to listen to me amid the overpowering roar of worldly voices, peace will come like a familiar friend. When you sit beside someone who is in pain without fearing their weariness, when you open your heart to apologize without waiting for a response, when you forgive without demanding immediate justice, when you care for someone small and unnoticed without seeking human recognition, you are walking upon the ground of peace that I have laid beneath your feet. You do not earn it, you simply receive it. Peace is not a prize at the end of the road. Peace is the way I hold your hand from the very beginning. There are days when you look at your life and wonder why the light that once burned brightly now only flickers like a small lamp in the corner of an old room. You think I am no longer there, that I have left because of repeated failures, because of weaknesses you cannot overcome, because of words you should not have spoken but did. But my child, the light has not disappeared. It has simply been covered by a thin layer of dust from small choices you thought were harmless, like a lamp on a table that has never been switched off, but has gathered dust for many days. Its light no longer passes through clear glass, but is warped into a dull glow. I am not far from you. I am still burning at the center of your soul. The darkness you see is not my absence. It is the slow forgetfulness that keeps you from reaching out and touching your own lamp. Small faults do not arrive like storms. They come like specks of dust resting quietly in the cracks of habit. A word lacking gentleness when you are tired. A closed-off look when you are afraid of being misunderstood. A single delay in apologizing when you know you were wrong. These things do not cause the soul to collapse at once. They simply add another thin layer each day, until one moment you realize the lamp that once shone brightly now casts a harsh and feeble light. I do not shout at you because of that dust. I do not close the door because you misstepped. I simply stand there, patient as a lamp cleaner, waiting for the moment you call to me, not with a cry of despair, but with a simple whisper, "Please help me see clearly again." In that very word, your hand has already opened just enough for me to place a soft cloth into it. Remember that wiping away dust is not destroying the lamp. You do not need to smash yourself to pieces just because your light is not yet strong. When a lamp is dusty, no one throws it away. They simply wipe its surface. I am the same with your soul. I do not ask you to condemn yourself. I do not ask you to drown in endless regret. I do not ask you to rebuild your whole life from zero. I only ask for a little honesty at a time to notice the dust, to take a deep breath, and lift your hand to wipe. A sincere apology. A small gesture to correct what has gone astray. A decision not to feed bitterness. These acts are like slow strokes of a cloth upon the lamp. There is no need for sudden, violent scrubbing. No need to prove anything to anyone. The light will return at the pace of gentleness. Some people are afraid to touch their past because they believe that if they begin to clear away the dust, larger stains will appear and fill them with shame. But I do not teach you to clean with trembling. I teach you to clean with tenderness. Just as someone who wipes glass knows that the thinner it is, the gentler the hand must be. I too touch your soul with utmost care. I do not want you to tear yourself apart, because violence against the soul only makes the dust cling more stubbornly. I want you to walk in small steps, a word of thanks instead of complaint, a gentle question instead of a harsh judgment, a shared meal in place of hesitant silence. It is not grand deeds that make the soul clear again, but gentle actions repeated over time. My child, light does not disappear when there is dust. It only waits to be seen again. And as you clean it little by little, you will discover what I have long seen. You never lost your ability to shine. You need only remember that light is not a reward for the perfect, but the nature you carried from the moment I breathed life into you. Dusting is not proof of your worth. It is an act of loving your own soul. When you choose to wipe away the thin layers of habit, I do not stand outside watching. I stoop down beside your hand, so that this light may once again become a shelter for those who are lost. And when the light returns, you will not be surprised. You will simply smile quietly, because you will know that I never left. There are souls who stand before my door as though before a mountain, believing they must gather enough strength, enough holiness, enough tear-filled prayers before they dare lay a hand on the handle. They are convinced that perfection is the key, that only when there is no wrinkle in the heart, no fault in the past, no weakness in memory, will I agree to come in. But my child, I do not require you to be perfect before you open the door. I only ask you to crack it open, like a hand resting gently on a cold handle. Warmth begins to move through the metal, and life begins at that very moment of contact. Not when the door swings wide. I have been standing there for a long time, not waiting for a great echo or a blazing return, but simply for the first small movement. Enough for me to know you still want to come home. Perfection makes you rigid. A door left ajar makes you soft. When you strive to become someone who never fails, you are locking yourself into a sealed room with no air, as though you must prove you are good enough to speak with me. But a door that is slightly open does not demand proof. It only asks for honesty. Think of the hand on the door handle. It does not display itself, does not proclaim anything, does not make grand vows. It simply says, I am willing for you to come in. The warmth that moves from your skin into the cold metal does not make a sound, does not shake the structure of the house, but it is enough for me to hear. I do not need you to open everything. I only need you not to lock it. There are those who imagine that for me to touch them, the door must be thrown wide open like a dramatic escape from darkness, like a return attended by trumpets and blazing light. But I rarely come in ways that cause an earthquake. I come like warmth in the morning breeze. No one knows exactly when it appears, but everyone knows when it brushes their skin. When you open the door, just a narrow slit, I do not wait for you to pull it wider. I place my hand upon the same handle you are touching, like someone standing beside you, gently accompanying you rather than dragging you along. Many journeys back do not begin with bold steps, but with a single breath. I cannot do this anymore. And I hear not because you have chosen perfect words, but because you have finally stopped hiding. You will see that in the moments when you open your heart just a little, it does not change the world instantly, but it changes the direction of your soul. A door left slightly ajar does not cause light to pour in like a waterfall. It allows a first ray to see the floor, and you begin to understand light does not need to explode in order to be present. I do not ask you to change your whole life in one night. Do not ask you to pay off all your emotional debts before returning. Do not ask you to find the perfect apology. I only ask you to be honest enough to admit I need you. That sentence is as light as a breath, but in the spiritual realm, it is the sound of a lock opening, echoing farther than any promise. My child, if you knew how I see, you would never call that small opening not enough. I do not look at the door in terms of size. I look in terms of direction. A door that has been closed and silent for many years needs only a slight movement for me to step in. I do not come to inspect the floor or to judge the mess. I come to light the lamp. When you place your hand on that handle, I place my hand over yours, not yanking, not forcing, only sharing warmth like a friend standing beside you. And if you move slowly, I move slowly with you. If you tremble, I hold you. If you have strength only to open a narrow gap, I will pass through that very gap. You do not need to be perfect to be accepted by me. You only need to crack the door open, and I will walk with you through the rest. There are rooms in your soul that you have kept closed for a long time because you believe they are too old, too cluttered, too hard to repair. You have left the clothes of emotion piled on the chairs, memories gathering dust under the table, and words that once wounded you, sleeping in the corners like nameless objects. You tell yourself that this place is no longer usable, that it is better to leave it alone. Do not mention it. Do not touch it. Do not change it. But, my child, I do not ask you to arrange everything perfectly before I enter. I only ask you to open the door. I am not afraid of the first unsteady light wandering through an untidy room, not afraid of the old marks on the walls, not afraid of the faint panic in your eyes. I am light, and light does not need the path cleared. It only needs somewhere to set its foot. When I step in, it is not to expose the dirt in order to shame you, but to make it visible enough so that you can finally breathe out the truth you have held in for too long. Healing does not begin when you turn yourself into someone else. It begins when you allow me to see you as you are. I do not look at you the way people look at a disorderly room with irritation, confusion, and a desire to judge. I look as one who carries an oil lamp, knowing that the light will find each corner in its own time, not in a rushed or violent way. You imagine that I walk straight into the center where there is no difficulty left, but I always begin in the small corners where you have hidden what you do not want mentioned. In the moment I enter, what changes is not the objects in the room, but the way they reflect the light. A wall that once seemed cold and gray becomes soft beneath a circle of golden glow. A dusty chair suddenly reveals the seat that has carried you through so many times of collapse and rising again. Light does not repair everything at once. It shows you what needs to be cared for first. Sometimes you think you must see results immediately, must see the room become clean after a single touch. But I do not work at the speed of haste. I work at the speed of love. And love knows that a soul cannot endure a storm of cleaning. Remember the time you tidied a corner of your house, your body bent down, your hand gently brushing away dust. not with anger, but with patience. I bend over your soul in the same way. I do not throw away the things you are not yet ready to release. I do not drag you out of the dark corner with brute force. I simply show you which shelves need straightening, which boxes need to be opened, which curtains need to be drawn so that light can enter. And each of these small movements, though almost no one sees them, is already the beginning of healing. Some are afraid to let me in because they believe I will break everything apart, sweep away the parts of life they have clung to, and strip off the layers of protection they built to survive. But I am not a conqueror. I am the one who remains. I enter barefoot like a guest of the house, carrying no sledgehammer, demanding no walls be torn down, requiring no complete confession all at once. I simply walk to the window and open it a little so that a gentle breeze can come in, so that you may realize the room has always been able to breathe. My presence is not thunder, it is the warmth in the palm laid upon your shoulder, not to demand that you be strong, but to remind you that from the moment I stepped in, you have not been alone. And when I am in that room, I do not count your faults. I count the opportunities that can become new beginnings. I see the clock that once stopped from exhaustion. I see the letters never sent because you feared rejection. I see the plans you forgot because your fear was too great. I do not blame them for lying there. I simply ask which one you would like to start with. I do not stand in the center of the room, demanding that you explain yourself. I bend down beside you, lifting each small fragment with tenderness, as though every piece were a moment I walked with you and you did not notice. You think I come to assess and judge, but in truth I come to bring light. And in that light you do not see condemnation, you see an invitation. Sit here with me. We will put things in order, little by little. There are wounds you have allowed the passing years to cover with dust, as though time were a teacher who knows how to mend every break. You think that if you do not speak of them, do not look at them, just keep moving, then one day you will wake up and the pain will no longer be there. But time only knows how to move. It does not know how to heal. It carries moments farther away from memory, but it does not touch what has been driven deep into your soul. Some wounds remain in you like a small shard of glass beneath the skin you can go on living. You can grow accustomed to the slight sting when you move, but that does not mean the fragment has disappeared. I do not ask you to turn back the clock, I ask you to let me touch it. Healing does not take place while you wait in worn-out silence, but when you allow me to place my hand where you hurt. You know, there are wounds that did not come from great catastrophes, but from small things you tried to minimize, a sentence repeated years ago, an abandonment you could not explain, a moment of being belittled, a promise broken. You treat them as tiny scratches, as dust on a window, as marks not worth mentioning. But the soul does not treat them lightly. It holds each one in a fine tension, like a door that stays shut because a single hinge is bent. You have become used to the narrowness inside your heart, used to walking carefully so as not to injure yourself, used to keeping others from coming too close for fear they might touch that spot. And you say, "It will all pass." But my child, things do not simply pass. You have only learned to endure. Endurance is not healing. Healing only begins when you let me see, let me touch, let me step into the part you do not dare to open. I am not a cold surgeon. I am the one who knit together every fiber within you. I touch your wounds with gratitude, not contempt, with mercy, not judgment. I do not ask you why you allowed it to happen. Do not ask why you were not strong enough. Do not require you to recount every detail so that I may evaluate the depth of your pain. I only ask, will you let me be here? You often imagine that I will demand radical change, that you must let go of everything at once, that you must become completely different in order to deserve healing. But I do not heal by storm, I heal by breath. I place my hand upon the place where you hurt like a mother, placing her hand on the fevered brow of her child, not asking the child to explain, not needing to know the hidden cause, only needing to know that it is in pain and in need of gentleness. There are wounds that do not heal because you try to hide them from me. You say that you want to be strong, that you want to overcome on your own, that you want to prove you are not weak. But my child, strength is not hiding. Strength is daring to open a small crack for me to enter. When I touch you, you do not need to prepare. You do not need to cover yourself. You do not need to repaint the wall with a fresh layer. You may tremble. You may cry. You may say, "I don't know what to do." That alone is enough. I do not ask you to know every solution. I only ask that you stop running. Time makes you forget the original pain. But my touch is what restores the soul, like a drop of water falling from a roof. Time only makes the air colder, but like sunlight touching a leaf, I bring life back. My healing does not happen in the moment you stand still and wait. It happens when you allow me to enter, even when you have no answers. I do not arrive in noise, nor in thunder, nor in accusation. I come in presence. I sit beside your wound as a friend who does not ask why the blood falls, but simply hands you a cloth to press against it. You think that I stay only with souls who triumph, but I often remain longest with souls who have only enough strength to say, "I am hurting." And from that very word, I begin. Together with you, I remove each layer of bandage, without haste, without force, without making you relive everything at once. I heal by touching the places you have tried so many times to forget, and when you allow me to touch them, you will realize something simple yet profound. It is not that your wounds are too great to heal. It is only that you are too afraid to bring them into the light. I am here to help you do that gently, steadily, never abandoning you. There are memories within you like a garden once struck by a storm. The petals torn apart, the stems broken, the soil scattered as if life had fled forever. You look at that garden and think it can only become barren land, that everything which had once grown died the day the wind tore through. You call those memories dark, a season you do not want to revisit, a piece of ground you do not want to touch. But my child, I do not see that garden as a failure. I see it as a place where I can begin again. I do not ask you to forget the storm. I only ask that you allow me to place my hand upon the earth that once trembled, that you allow me to see the places that were broken, that you allow me to bend down and pick up the dry branches you believed had no worth. The peace I sow does not require an untouched garden. It only needs land that is willing to open. Whether silent or worn, you may think that what you endured is nothing but ashes are evidence of a life that once burned bright, like soil after a storm. Your painful memories hold strange minerals that peace can only take root in when I touch them. I enter, not as a gardener who scolds the plants for failing to stand, but as one who lifts each branch, cleans each leaf, checks each root to see whether there is a single breath that might sprout again. I do not shake my head at the fractures. I smile when I find the faint lines of life hidden beneath the mud. The light of peace does not demand perfection. It only needs a patch of soil to place a seed. Painful memories, when laid bare beneath my gentle light, cease to be a place for fear and become the ground where peace roots deeply. When you allow me to tend that garden again, I do not demand that you tear everything down in a day. I know there are old roots tangled together, hardened patches of ground trampled over, decaying leaves lying beneath the shadows of many years. I do not despise them. I simply loosen each layer of soil. Just as I peel back the old shell of fear, so the softened earth beneath can breathe. Then I sow a small seed, not loud, not radiant, only a tender sprout of peace. Enough for the soil to feel, that a new season has begun. You will not see it immediately. It does not burst forth suddenly like a dramatic promise. It rests quietly beneath the silent soil, drinking the night dew and enduring the unseen hours. But in that silence, I am working. Thin roots, fragile as strands of hair, begin to creep downward, seeking water, seeking space, seeking continuation, and from within memories that seem dead, new life begins its first steps. You often want peace to appear like a grand flower, strong, vibrant, erasing all pain at once. But the peace I plant is not like that. It resembles a young shoot pushing through the soil bit by bit, almost unnoticed. On the first day, you see nothing. On the second day, you think, I have forgotten my promise. But one morning, in a thin sunlight, you notice a small curve where the earth has risen, not because the storm has been erased from history, but because life has chosen to pass through the storm to return. Your wound is not a grave, it is the soil where I cultivate peace. Your pain is not a conclusion, it is the foundation of a new season that only I can see in full. When peace emerges, it does not come to deny the memory. It comes to declare that the memory no longer holds power over you. I do not remake the post-storm garden into a copy of the one before. I build it into a place deeper, wider, able to endure and able to understand. A tree that once broke does not merely stand upright again, it learns to root more firmly. Leaves that once were torn do not simply grow back, they become thicker, able to shield the tender shoots beside them. You think pain only leaves marks, but under my hand, it becomes a place where peace learns how to live. And when you walk through that garden and see a flower blooming from where you once collapsed, you will understand something known only by souls who have survived the storm. I do not erase memories, I turn them into fertile ground. There are days when you feel like a small spring at its source, with only a few final drops clinging to the stone. You look inside yourself and say, I have nothing to give. You hold on to every bit of strength like a fragile breath, afraid that if you release it, you will be emptied completely. But my child, I do not ask you to become a great river before you know how to open your heart. I only ask you to be a spring, small, delicate, yet still able to flow. The water in the spring does not come from its anxiety. It comes from the deep source that the eye cannot see. You give not because you are full. You give because you trust that I am the source. A single drop from a spring can wake an entire dry forest, not because it is strong, but because it reaches the place that thirsts. You often wait until your heart is overflowing before you dare to share, like someone who waits for a vessel to be filled to the brim before thinking it can pour. But vessels were not created to be decorative objects standing still. They were made to become full and empty. Empty and full. Like the rhythm of the heart that contracts and expands so life can continue. If you hold on to everything you have because you are afraid you will never receive again, you turn your heart into a jar with a sealed lid. That lid blocks my pouring. When you give from your lack, you are not draining your life, you are opening a space, a palm, a narrow gate through which I can pour. That empty space is itself a prayer unspoken. I know where the source is. There are small actions that only needy souls perform with true faithfulness, sharing a simple meal with someone exhausted, sending a word of comfort when your own heart is dry, pulling a chair close to someone lonely when you yourself have no one to lean on. The world will look and say, naive, foolish, does not know how to protect oneself. But I look and see that you have just opened a door. Souls who have much can give because they have abundance. But souls who lack give because they trust. And I cherish that trust as dry soil cherishes the first rain of the season. In the very place where you believe yourself to be empty, I plant my water, not as a reward, but to teach you the rhythm of emptiness and fullness by which the kingdom of heaven moves. When a small spring agrees to flow, it does not need to know where its water will end up. It only needs to know that the flow does not belong to itself. I do not ask you to calculate. If I give today, I will receive tomorrow. I only ask you to learn how not to close your heart. Closure makes you like a river choked by a dam, its waters turn stagnant, inviting weeds and mosquitoes. Opening makes you like an underground stream, weaving through the earth, quiet yet strong enough to push life to the surface. I do not demand that you become great in the eyes of the world. I only ask that you do not seal the lid of your vessel. When you pour a single drop from the very place that is dry, I will do the rest. And then one day, without noise, without announcement, you will realize that within you there is no longer the emptiness you assumed. Not because you accumulated, but because you created space. My fullness does not arrive as something poured in from the outside, but as something rising from the life I placed within you that you have long refused to let move. Like a headwater spring discovering a hidden vein of water among stone, you will feel a cool current bubbling up from the place you once believed barren. You will discover something simple, yet profound. You are never truly lacking when you know how to let me pass through you. Your emptiness is the doorway through which I enter. And every drop you have given, I transform into a river, not for you to keep, but so that other parched souls may know that life is still flowing. There are souls who can only give when the eyes of the world are watching, as though kindness is valuable only when applause is offered. But my child, there are flowers that release their fragrance only when night falls. They do not wait for sunrise to display their colors, nor for passers-by to pause and admire. They bloom in darkness like a whisper, sending their scent into the wind, so that whoever walks past will stop without knowing why their heart has been comforted. Giving in silence works the same way. It needs no praise, no recognition, no audience. It is fragrance, not performance, breath, not slogan, worship offered not from your lips, but from your heart itself. When you do a good deed in secret, no one stands beside you to record it. No one sees it. No one thanks you, yet, in that very moment, heaven bows. I see you step beyond the threshold of instinctive selfishness, beyond the voice inside you demanding to be acknowledged, beyond the need to prove your worth. You no longer place yourself at the center. You allow me to stand there. The small act you perform might be placing a bag of rice at someone's doorstep, sending a warm message to a lonely person, or slipping a banknote into the hand of a stranger without explanation. No stage lights shine on you. No commentary retells the moment. But I call it worship, not because the gift is large or small, but because the heart has learned to bend low. Silent giving is like a hallway light in the night. It is not bright enough to overwhelm anyone. It is bright enough to keep the weary from stumbling. That light does not say, "Look at me." It murmurs, "I am here because someone needs me." Many will never know where the light came from, but their steps will be steady as they walk. You are the same when you shine my light into another's life without needing a nameplate. You are making my presence a refuge. The deeds done quietly, without signature, carry a deeper power than everything displayed. For only souls that truly belong to me understand that the beauty of love does not lie in the signpost, but in the small lamp that illuminates trembling footsteps. The world says that giving is an exchange. Give to receive. Give to gain. Give to feel superior. But worship is different. Worship is bowing low to remind the soul that every good thing comes from me. When you give silently, you place me on the throne, not your ego. You do not send a challenge to the world. You send gratitude into existence. In that moment, no witness is required for your worship to have value, for I have seen it. and with me. Your hidden act is not an isolated gesture. It is a prayer made through your hands, through your steps, through your sacrifice that demands no response. There are gifts that bloom only when no eyes are watching. The more you try to display them, the more they wilt. But when you allow them to quietly take root in the heart of the receiver, I will take over. I will turn that act into strength, into warmth, into a memory a soul will carry through stormy days. You do not need to know when it bears fruit. The night flower does not need to know who walks by. It releases fragrance because it was created to do so. You are the same when you give without seeking recognition. You are living the very nature of the kingdom of heaven. There are acts you believe so small, they are not worth remembering. A word of care sent when someone is weary. A shared meal when you only have enough for yourself. A brief hand clasp given to a trembling soul. You give and then walk away without expecting repayment, without waiting for gratitude. But, my child, those actions do not disappear. They fall upon the lake of humanity like a humble droplet, and from it I create ripples. The ripple does not ask who is watching, it only knows how to move, reaching shores you cannot see and traveling farther than you imagine. You give once, but the love you sow continues to move, continues to echo, continues to soothe hearts that will never meet you. You often think that generosity must be grand to matter, that one must build projects, organizations, or achieve greatness to be considered useful. But I do not measure by the width of what you display. I measure by the depth of the heart from which you give. A stone thrown into water may create a large splash for a moment, then vanish like a cheer, fading. But a single drop, falling at the right time, in the right place, creates rings that endure, expanding, expanding, touching distant waters your eyes can never follow. Your silent generosity is the same. You cannot see it moving, but I see it. You do not hear its voice, but I hear, and I turn it into a wave that travels far beyond your reach. Someone asks, if no one knows I did it, is it still worth doing? But I ask, if you love without needing proof, is that not the very essence of the kingdom? The love you give is not meant to leave a mark, not meant to engrave your name, not meant to demand a reward. You do not throw a stone with force to make a loud splash across the lake. You simply drop a single, quiet drop of kindness into stillness. The ripples from that drop do not boast, do not parade themselves. Yet they are the ripples I choose to awaken a soul drifting like a lost leaf upon the current. I make your generosity the thread that binds distant souls together. Even if none of them can point to the starting point, you do not need to track where the ripples travel. You do not need to verify how many changes they have made. That is not your work. The lake does not know it is reflecting the sky. It simply does so in silence. Likewise, when you give because of me, you do not need to think about effectiveness. The ripples I create may reach those you will never meet, pass through lives you will never enter, and bring comfort to places you never knew existed. You offer a small measure of peace, and I let its wave touch the shore where someone is drowning in despair. You speak a gentle word, and I transform it into a current strong enough to lift a soul from the depths. Do not fear that what you do will be forgotten. In the eyes of the world, deeds without witnesses vanish like morning mist. But in my eyes, they are the silent movements that calm the whole ocean. I see every ripple expanding, every ray of light reflected upon the surface, every subtle change within a heart frozen shut. And when you stand in stillness, believing what you have given has sunk into nothingness, I smile, for I am using that very thing to create seasons of growth you never need to know. Your generosity is not an expenditure. It is the beginning of a movement that belongs to me. You only need to release the drop. I will take care of the rest. There are seasons in your life when everything seems to collapse at once. as if the ground beneath your feet is pulled away without warning. You interpret those losses as verdicts sent down from heaven, as signs that I am turning my face from you. But my child, I do not teach by suffocating life, I teach by sending life deeper. A grain of wheat, when resting in the sower's hand, is dry, light, and bears no shape of maturity. But when the sower places it into the dark soil, that seed does not die to be forgotten, it dies to become something new. I know you tremble when you feel buried, when the light disappears and every direction becomes invisible. But in that very darkness, life begins to turn. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it produces many seeds. Asterisk, I do not send you into trial to suffocate you. I send you into trial so that you may take root. You think trial proves your weakness, but in truth, trial opens depths that surface peace can never reach. The grain does not sprout in the wind, nor bear fruit beneath the blazing sun. It needs a soil with weight, with moisture, with the ability to hold the seed in silence. You see trial as an enemy, but I see it as the earth. You see the dark days as walls, but I see them as shelter to keep the seed from burning beneath harsh light. The pressures you endure are not the hammer striking your soul. They are the hand pushing the seed just deep enough for the roots to find water. When you feel everything around you closing in, when doors go unanswered, when prayers fall into quiet, that is not the moment I abandon you. It is the moment I am redirecting the roots, teaching you to seek life in me rather than on shallow ground. I know there are moments when you want to spring back to the surface, to flee from the soil that embraces you. But my child, if the seed is pulled up too soon, it will have no strength to live. I do not ask you to compress yourself in pain. I ask you to remain with me in the stillness. The soil does not erase the seed. It shields it from the dryness of the wind. The days you feel cut off from the light are not to make you forgotten, but to teach you how to draw strength from places unseen. When you lie quietly beneath the pressure of trial, you are storing the very life you have not yet recognized. Like a sprout pushing the earth little by little, strength does not come from display. It comes from those hours of hidden silence, where roots extend in the dark to find me. There are trials that seem beyond your capacity to endure. You look at them and ask, why me? I do not answer with arguments, but with presence. I do not hand you a map to explain every knot, but I remain in the soil with you. I bend down and place my hand upon your trembling, asking neither strength nor pretense. I ask only one thing: do not try to spring out of the ground before the sprout is ready. Just as the seed cannot pull itself from the earth, you do not need to lift yourself by force of will. You only need to stay. Maturity does not come from breaking silence, but from believing that the silence is not a void, but the place where I am working within you. And one day, without drums, without crowds, without lights, the sprout will pierce through the surface. Light will no longer frighten you, it will become your companion. Wind will no longer threaten you, it will help you draw a wider breath. When others witness your blossom, they will believe it appeared in a sudden burst. But I know the life you display that day began in the hours beneath the soil, when you thought you had lost everything. Trial is not punishment, it is my invitation for you to go deeper into me, so that your roots may be anchored in a foundation no one can take away. You do not mature by standing in the light. You mature by knowing where to find water even when the light has not yet come. There are days when you wait for an event large enough to shake you, a warning loud enough to startle you, an experience that makes you feel you stand at the threshold of life and death. You think that only great storms are where I test you, that only towering winds or swirling waters are strong enough to change you. But my child, it is the small trials, gentle as breath, fine as dust upon a tabletop, where your heart is forged through patience, They come like the first step of a long staircase, so calm you could walk past without noticing. They do not threaten you, do not steal your peace. They simply ask a single question: will you place your foot upon the next step? A small trial does not need thunder, it needs only a moment of inattentive soul. Like when you intend to speak a kind word but choose silence. Or when you could forgive but delay it. Or when you could pray but instead scroll your screen to soothe your emotions. Each choice is a step on the staircase. There is no audience watching, no applause, no revelation to mark that you have overcome. You simply take one more step or remain where you stand. Small trials do not terrify you, but precisely because of that, they easily make you forget that life always ascends or descends by a single step at a time. There are times when you look at yourself and scold, "Why am I this weak?" But my child, weakness does not lie in the fact that you have not yet reached the highest step. Weakness lies in convincing yourself that the next step does not matter. Those who climb stairs do not stare at the lofty summit, they look at their feet and their rhythm. The mature soul is the same. I do not give you leaps that skip floors, I give evenly spaced steps, one at a time, so that the rhythm of your life can harmonize with mine. When you face a tiring day, the staircase does not change its shape, only your legs search for a landing to rest upon. I do not blame you, I simply invite you to place your hand gently on the railing and stand up once more. Small challenges teach you things that great challenges cannot. They teach you how to keep peace when no one is watching, how to choose truth when there is no reward, how to love when you feel no return. They do not teach you with a gust that knocks you down, but with gentle whispers reminding you one more step. You do not need the strength of a warrior, you need the constancy of someone who walks steadily. There will be days when you feel as though you are not moving forward. But my child, not turning back is already part of the journey. Not every step is quick, some are slow, steady, sufficient for your heart to learn how to settle, to abide in me without waiting for dramatic calls. And at some point, you look back, not to boast, but to realize that you have gone farther than you thought. There is no single moment that marks your maturity. Maturity lies in the sequence of steps you took when no one was watching. Small trials do not tear apart the heavens and the earth, but they open a space within you where you discover that I have walked beside every step, silent, yet never absent. When you learn to pause, breathe slowly, and place your foot on the next step without impatience. That is when you are learning the lesson of steadfast souls. Solidity is not a roar, but a steady breath. There are seasons you pass through when every spiritual sign seems to vanish, when your prayers rise like mist and then disperse, when the pages of Scripture turn like wind without leaving their imprint upon your heart. You believe you have lost me, that the distance between heaven and earth is too vast for your voice to reach. But my child, in those unseen days I am training your soul in something radiant. Light can never teach trust. Some seeds only sprout after many days without sunlight, not because the soil has abandoned them, but because their roots must go deep into places untouched by eyes. I do not hide my face to make you hurt. I hide it to redirect your soul away from fleeting emotions and lead you toward a trust that lives by my nature. Mature faith does not demand constant confirmation. It seeks stability within silence. Just as one learning to swim no longer needs a hand behind their back, you will come to a moment when you must release yourself into the water without seeing a support, not because the support has vanished, but because I have engraved into your muscles the memory of holding. I know there are steps you take that feel like walking on glass empty beneath your feet, so thin that your soul trembles. But my child, true maturity is not the absence of trembling. It is trembling while still stepping forward. You do not need daily evidence to continue. You need the remembrance that even when you do not see me, you still belong to me, like a seed that knows it is a tree, even before it has seen its own leaves. Some love only when their love is returned. Some pray only when miracles appear. Some serve only when praise comes. Your soul is not trained that way. I lead you into quiet places where the response is not radiant, where the miracle hides in simple rhythms of life, a word of forgiveness, an embrace, a moment when you choose truth instead of justification. Like a musician, the deepest melodies are not formed on the night of performance, but in the hours spent alone before the keys. Repeating notes no one hears, that is where I tune your ear, so that when the true harmony sounds, you recognize it not because it is loud, but because it is familiar. I know you wait for a sign, for proof, for an appearing so powerful it crushes every doubt. But my child, if I give you signs so that you may believe, that is not faith, that is reflex. I am not lacking in signs. I am lacking in souls willing to believe, even when the signs do not come in the way they desire. Sometimes I come like a ray slipping through the doorframe on a late morning, so gentle that only those who know how to wait will notice. Sometimes I come like warmth in a cup of tea beside your bed, wordless, without proclamation, yet enough for your heart to know that presence does not need noise to be real. If you are in a barren season, do not hurry to call it abandonment. See it as the pause between two breaths, as the moment when the potter rests the clay before shaping it again. I do not leave you. I give you room for your heart to stand, for your faith not to survive by temporary crutches, but to stand firm in the rhythm that belongs to me. When you walk through days without seeing yet still hold to love, you enter a realm of faith that no longer needs spotlights, a realm where the depth of the soul matters more than the width of emotion. There are souls who believe that believing in me means always feeling fire in their chest, always having moments of tears under my presence, always hearing my call as thunder. But my child, faith does not live on the mountaintops of emotion. It lives in the valleys where you choose me, even when you feel nothing. Every morning you open your eyes and whisper, I am here, even when no radiant light sweeps through your window, is a choice. Every time you place your hand on the shoulder of someone hurting, even when you yourself are tired, is a choice. Every time you choose silence to protect peace instead of defending yourself, is a choice. These choices do not shake the heavens, do not create great echoes, yet they carve a gentle trajectory into your soul. As the steady rhythm of rain etches a channel in the earth, the day you learn to keep faith from submitting to emotion is the day faith begins to live within you like a heartbeat. The heartbeat does not ask whether you are enthusiastic, it simply does its work. Mature faith is the same. I do not need you to feel inspired every moment. I need you to be faithful. The sailor does not steer by the waves that rise suddenly, but by the steady compass. When you make small decisions in my direction, you are adjusting the rudder just slightly, but enough to avoid whirlpools. No one applauds when you offer an apology. No crowd rejoices when you choose forgiveness. No spotlight shines down when you share the last piece of bread in your home. But my child, it is these unobserved actions that form the true structure of faith. I see you on ordinary afternoons when you return home exhausted. Moments when you could collapse, lash out, or let irritation tear at those who love you. I see you set down your bag, breathe slowly, and choose gentleness even when it is not returned to you. No angel needs to record it for me to understand how immense that act is. I see you when you refuse the harsh words on the tip of your tongue simply because you know they would wound someone. That silence is not small, it is the door you close in the face of the thief of peace. I see you when you decide to spend 5 minutes in prayer before sleep, even as your eyes grow heavy, not because you wish to complete a task, but because you know I am there. Those moments you call ordinary, I call precious stones. Faith is not a flame that bursts brightly when the wind blows, but a bed of glowing embers that stays quietly alive when no one is watching. Mature souls do not measure their faith by how many times they are moved, but by their ability to remain in me when every stirring has faded. When you stand in the kitchen and cook a simple meal for someone, not thinking about sacrifice, only because that is how you love, I am there. When you offer gentle words to the weak rather than urging them to be strong, I am there. When you choose to speak the truth, even though the truth brings you no advantage, I am there. The outward act is the shell. The decision to lean toward me is its soul. Do not wait for grand signs to prove the faith within you. Just as a musician does not wait for the concert to practice, your soul does not wait for the storm to learn endurance. You learn through repeated notes. Through ordinary moments most people never remember. But I remember. I remember every step you chose to walk with me when no one applauded you. Every sigh you transformed into prayer. Every time your heart wanted to close but you still opened one more small space for light to enter. These little things become your rhythm. And that rhythm is the way the soul learns to live in me, not through momentary brilliance, but through gentle constancy, my child. There are souls who continually ask me when. How long? How do I avoid being caught off guard? They imagine readiness to be a strategy, a checklist, a reservoir of emotions, a plan to defend against the future. But readiness is not forged in feverish panic. It is woven into the quiet rhythm of living. Like a house whose door has been open since morning, not because the owner heard a knock beforehand, but because they have become accustomed to the light dropping by. Those who wait for the trumpet to change will always be one beat late, but the one who lives in me each day will not know what being caught off guard means, for their heart has already been in peace before the sound ever arrives. You do not need to rush to the door when the light comes. You need only stand in the house that has welcomed the light all along. You will recognize this in the smallest things. The day you choose forgiveness, not because you fear a deadline, but because your heart no longer wants to store darkness in its chest. The day you choose truth, not because you face judgment, but because you have grown accustomed to breathing clean air. The day you place a meal before another, not to earn spiritual merit, but because you have found joy in giving. These are the days the door has already been opened. A room is filled with light not because the light breaks down the door, but because the door was never sealed shut. I do not teach you to live like someone fleeing the dusk. I teach you to live like the morning sun, slipping through small gaps in the door, gentle but unwavering. Do not think readiness is a stern face or trembling hands waiting for something to happen. Readiness is the way you lift a cup of tea in the morning and say, "Thank you." The way your heart knows to stop when passing someone weary. The way you choose not to retaliate even when you have reasons. In those moments, you do not think you are preparing, you are simply living. Those who belong to me are not frantic, they are still. Like a house that is familiar with daylight. When a ray of sun enters, they do not flinch. They do not scramble for shelter. They simply lift their face, because that light has already become part of their breathing. Many fear the trumpet as a tear across the sky, as the signal of an ending, as a wind that sweeps away everything unfinished. But my child, for the one who lives in me, the trumpet is not a door closing. It is the final step of a journey long underway. When you open your eyes on a sunny morning, you do not need to brace yourself to receive the dawn, because the whole night has been given to rest. Light does not harm eyes that are accustomed to seeing it. I do not call you to live in grim anticipation, keeping your soul in a state of tense vigilance. I call you to live in repose. Every word you speak, every seed you sow, every person you quietly uplift, these things are already readiness. If the trumpet sounds at any moment, it does not force you to change direction suddenly. It is simply the final note guiding you across the threshold toward which you have been walking for a very long time. You are not the one rushing to the door in panic. You are the one who has left it ajar. allowing the morning light to pour in since daybreak. In that place, there are no dark scripts, no storms of retaliation, no terrified glances. There is only me and a soul already familiar with my heartbeat. My child, when you reach the end of my words, you will realize I never asked you to run toward a future filled with danger. I only invited you to return to where you already belong. From the first days you knew me, your soul heard that gentle rhythm, no pushing, no forcing, no turning you into someone who must strain to survive. I come like a light breeze upon the skin, like sunlight stepping through a doorway, like the steady fall of water in the garden behind the house. And you, even when you thought you were lost, were still within my arms. The preparation you seek is not found in predictions, not in reports, not in ladders built for frantic escape. That preparation is written into your soul through small actions, an apology, a meal shared, arms held around another's pain, a silence in the moment you could win with noise. These things make no sound, yet they shake the heavens. I know there are those who tell you to hurriedly tidy your life, as if the final day belongs only to those who can run. But my child, fear is never a good teacher. It only causes you to shrink, to lock your heart, to doubt what is good even when the good stands at your door. I do not erect ladders with rungs too high to reach. I lay flat stones beneath your feet so each step can be placed with peace. I do not demand one great leap. I invite you to take half a step, then another half step, day after day. You think these steps are invisible, but I see every one. As a gardener knows when each leaf has changed color, I see every part of you that has softened beneath my light. There are souls who want to know the entire road to the end, who want to see the map stretched before them, who want to hold every possibility in their hands, who seek to protect themselves with relentless vigilance. But my child, my map is not drawn by straight lines. It is drawn by the rhythm of love repeated, steady, enduring, gentle, never pushing you into confusion. You walk in me not by knowing every answer, but by accepting that at every turn, I am already there before you. No corner in your life ever surprises me. When you were misunderstood, I was there. When you were angry, I was there. When you were disappointed in yourself, I was there, not to record your faults, but to draw you back toward the light, even if only by a single, small degree. I see every effort you make in silence, the times you shed tears without letting anyone know, the nights you wrestle inside but choose gentleness instead of anger, the days you are exhausted yet still place your hand on the shoulder of someone who needs comfort. You think those moments are small, but my child, it is precisely there that my kingdom is revealed most clearly. My kingdom is not built with grand monuments for people to admire. It is woven from every fragment of a soul that knows how to bow low, to love, to forgive when it brings no advantage to itself. I have witnessed gestures that no one applauded. I have heard prayers that only you and I know. And I keep those things as foundation stones in the house I am preparing for you. When you ask me, how can I know that I belong to you? I do not hand you a test. I ask you what words you spoke yesterday to someone who was sad. I ask you whether you have forgiven anyone recently. I ask you whether you have ever taken responsibility instead of placing blame. I ask you whether you have ever opened your home to a lonely person, even if only for a few minutes. That is how I measure. Not by success, not by possessions, not by the number of things you have accumulated. The things you try to hold will eventually slip from your hands, but the souls you have touched will not disappear. They become notes in the song of my kingdom, and that song rises louder than any trumpet blast the world expects. There are those who wait for the trumpet like people waiting for disaster, hurried, panicked, building bunkers in their hearts, gathering every shard of safety. But I do not call you to build a fortress against heaven. I call you to set a table in the night. I call you to bring a cup of water to the tired. I encourage you to teach a child to say thank you before it knows how to spell the word life. I teach you to find joy in washing each dish, not because they become clean, but because, in every small act, you are training your soul to love. A truthful life is not a moral costume. It is the quiet response of the soul to me, like the sound of leaves brushing gently against each other when the wind passes through. Not loud, not showy, but unmistakable. You ask me about the end, but I ask you about the present. I do not ask what you have prepared for the last day. I ask whether you have opened your heart today. I do not ask how much provision you have stored. I ask whether you have shared your portion. I do not ask how many steps of prayer you have counted. I ask which direction your heart leans in your quiet moments. Readiness is not a state of constant tension. It is the steadiness of one who is used to living in the light. If the trumpet were to sound at the very moment you are smiling at a stranger, or wiping a tear from a friend's cheek, or turning a key to open your door to someone seeking shelter, you would not need to change direction. You would already be standing in the path I have laid. I have seen many souls run in panic to find me when they hear warnings about the end. But I have also seen souls who simply bow their heads and smile, not because they are indifferent, but because they are accustomed to living in me. For them, the trumpet is not a sudden jolt in the night. It is the voice of the one calling their name, a voice they have heard throughout the journey. They do not need to change themselves in an instant, because their life has already been a yes. You imagine readiness as the discovery of a great event. But I tell you the truth, readiness is when you can meet me at any moment without needing to rearrange your soul. Because that soul has already turned toward me through many seasons. There are things you are holding tightly, as if losing them would mean losing yourself. But my child, every season changes. There are relationships that exist only to teach you how to love. There are jobs that exist only to teach you humility. There are losses that exist only to teach you that I am enough. You do not need to be ashamed of what you could not keep. Life does not preserve what is beyond your grasp. It preserves what has transformed your heart. I will not ask how many walls you have built. I will ask how many doors you have opened. I will not ask how much darkness you have resisted. I will ask how you have brought light into those very places. This is not an exam. It is the way a potter looks at the vessels he has formed. I only look to see whether there is enough empty space inside to hold water. If you are reading these words with anxiety, I want you to place your hand over your heart and breathe slowly. No need to run. No need to strain. No need to prove. You are not someone standing outside the door waiting for me to pass by. You are someone into whose house I have already entered and sat down. I do not arrive at the last minute to judge whether you have succeeded or failed. I have walked with you along the long road. I have seen everything you tried to hide, everything you were afraid to name, everything you thought I would condemn. But my child, I do not count your sins in order to expose you. I count the opportunities for you to return. Every small time you open the door, every narrow beam of light you allow through, every word you choose to speak instead of remaining in bitter silence, all of these are the footsteps of your coming home. And when the moment comes, whether at the first light of dawn or in the stillness of deep night, you will not be caught off guard. Souls who live in me do not move from darkness into light. They have already walked in the light day by day. They simply step from one room into another within the same house. The door is already open. The light simply floods in stronger. There are no more tears of fear, only tears of cleansing as you realize that every small moment of love, every low note of humility, every I'm sorry and thank you, every shared meal, every outstretched hand has been the rhythm of my kingdom already living in you. My child, Go and do the small things. For in what I am building, the small things are the very bedrock of eternity. Now pray like this, Lord. Please teach me not to live by fear of the future, but by the wakefulness of today. Help me to see each small step as a response to you. Do not let me chase after the screams of the world, but teach me to return to the quiet breath of your peace. When I panic over what I do not understand, let me know that you are not asking me to decode every sign. You are only asking me to open my heart so that you may touch it. Lord, let my heart become more familiar with the rhythm of the kingdom than with the rhythm of rumors. When I am surrounded by words, predictions, and arguments, help me to keep still inside and remember that I belong to you. Let prayer become the place where I reset the rhythm of my heart, so that I am not pulled off course by what is noisy, but remain in you. Lord, teach me to forgive, like a gardener gently tending a shrub after the storm, not rushed, not demanding, but patient with life as it recovers. Help me release the thorns in my mind, so I no longer use the past as a chain around my own soul. Let me know that forgiveness is not forgetting the pain, but allowing you to enter the places that were once wounded. Lord, teach me how to apologize without trembling in fear of losing my worth. Help me come before others with an open heart, not letting pride push me away from you. When I return from my mistakes, let me see that you are not standing there to calculate, but to extend your hand and welcome me back. Lord, guard me from thoughts that make me believe running away is safe. Teach me to walk through the world without letting it shape me, to stand firm amid its noise without losing the gentleness within. Help me become a vessel of your light, not one who attacks, nor one who avoids. Lord, help me live with sincerity, not through grand declarations, but through small acts. When I choose kindness instead of bitterness, when I choose silence instead of insult, let me understand that you see everything. Let my soul respond to you through the simplest actions, not waiting for dramatic moments to prove faith. Lord, grant me courage when I face those who have hurt me. Teach me not to cling to resentment as proof that I must protect myself, but to place my pain in your hands. When I tremble because I fear being looked down upon, remind me that I do not forgive so they may win, but so that my soul may be free. Lord, help me acknowledge my own faults. Teach me to say I was wrong without treating it as a sentence, but as a door through which you can straighten what is bent. When I am weary from pretending to be strong, teach me to kneel before you to be healed. Lord, rescue me from the habit of storing bitterness. Help me recognize the small angers taking root in my mind, so I may remove them before they become vines that tighten around my soul. Teach me to tend my inner life as a gardener tends the soil with patience, silence, and hope. Lord, teach me not to use silence as a fortress, but as a place where you may draw near. When I close my heart for fear of further wounds, please find a gap where your light can still enter. Grant me the humility to make room for you, even if only through a simple prayer. Lord, keep me in the days when my heart trembles, when old memories return, when old wounds throb. Teach me to lean on you instead of bracing myself alone. Remind me that you do not expect instant perfection. You only ask that I return, little by little. Lord, teach me the language of your kingdom, gentle apologies, quiet restoration, mercy that does not need to be justified. Teach me to live as one who understands that peace is not the reward of the strong, but the heart that has learned to return to you. Make me a small light in this life, not because I deserve it, but because you placed me here to love. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong community of faith.